Curiosity, asking good questions. Asking the right question is a principle of peer support which can be invaluable to our ambassadors. Please be mindful that for vulnerable community members, some questions can also be triggering. An example is, where do you live? It can be painful when you don't have a home. This is something that I learned is a real art for the best peer support workers I met. I'd listen, and just they'd ask a question that was just like, and it's also something very good psychotherapists do, right? The psychotherapist already knows what the person has to do. And saying what a person has to do is not useful. But saying a question that helps elicit that spark where the person can see for themselves why a choice might be supportive is really powerful medicine. And I think just the thing that really made me a better peer support worker is when I got comfortable enough to really lean into my curiosity, right? Wanting to know about people, you know, and that is an element of really quality attention. So what comes up for people with curiosity?
I guess that's my superpower. I love to hear other people's stories, but I'm a writer too, and I've done a lot of head injuries. So I am very lucky that I'm motivated by, I want to hear your story. I mean, I was in AA for almost 3 decades in and out of AA, and I know what the shared suffering and the shared experience and the sharing of personal experience, how important it is. But it can also be a bit of a landmine with asking questions and accidentally triggering people. I think it's really important to know what questions to ask and what to not ask. But that's just, I mean, to us, it's a cumulative experience, and we get it, kind of thing.
I think for ambassadors, it might be useful too to ask fairly safe questions.
Yes.
Like about people's dogs. That is a beautiful bridge that you use.
Oh yeah, and you might...
People want to talk about their dogs.
A little bit of small talk can lead to anything. But I think with lawyers, know that you don't ask a question that you don't know the answer to. And another really important piece of advice is don't ask a question that you aren't prepared to hear the answer to.
Right.
Or aren't capable of dealing with that information.
For sure.
Yeah, so there's a difference between chatting with people and someone beginning a therapeutic kind of conversation. We don't want that. We don't want people unloading necessarily while we're talking to people in the financial district or something. Like, and you're ultimately, if you're making those kind of mistakes, you're really giving that person a space to re-traumatize themselves, which I did for years, and people unfortunately did with me. Everyone wanted to be a therapist, and what was your childhood like? And then I'm back being beaten by my father. I just think this is important to be said.
That's a good point.
And one way to navigate that tension is, like, I never, as a professional peer support worker, I never asked people about their childhood trauma, but I always had it come up organically from that person, right? And so I never tried to pull it out, and I would let people know when they started saying, like, I probably shouldn't, like, say this to you or whatever, but you're totally welcome to. And occasionally, I would put a lid on it, because there is times when you open up to your trauma and it's being embodied, that the person's trauma is so vast that if you keep going, you may not be able to get a lid back on it. So in those contexts, I would actually say, is it okay if we kind of put this down now, just go for a walk and just kind of, do a little bit. I can just see that there's no way if we kept going, and it's going to be a tension that we're navigating, because ambassadors are going to be good listeners, right? And people who've gone through it are going to want to share stuff they've been through when it's someone they build trust with. So it's just using your best judgment.
When you're still in the healing process, you're hurting all the time. Sorry, go on.
It's all good. Anything else coming? Yes,
Curiosity. I learned the value of it. I took a negotiation course, and the number one thing in that was curiosity about the other person. Instead of you go into a negotiation, you've got your agenda, and so change that. Go in, you know what you want, but that's not the big thing. You're curious as to what that other person wants and where they're coming from, and because a lot of times you assume you know, but you don't know.
Yeah.
And I think curiosity is like an attitude when you're with people. You don't have to ask a lot of questions. That to me, curiosity is not asking questions all the time. It's more just being interested and being, wow, really? What? Tell me more about that, or something like that, and not having the attitude that you know already what the situation is. And the other thing is sometimes I become impatient. And I'm listening to somebody tell me something, and you know, I'm one of these helpers, and I like to figure things out. I like to solve problems. So I'm listening to somebody, and I will start shooting out questions because I'm trying to figure this out. So I have to pull back and stop myself from doing that because it's my natural tendency. If I have all this information, then I'll be able to, you know. Anyway.
Mindfulness helps with that, with me, just being mindful of our faults.
Right, yeah.
Toto.
The thing that was coming up for me was question less, listen more. And the more you listen and allow questions to come naturally, it'll fit where it is. In a way, wait for the question to come if there is to be a question.
Okay.
Just deal with it.
And there is an element of problem solving that we're hoping will come up for ambassadors. And that'll be when someone's telling you a problem and asking for help,
Right.
maybe being able to connect them to somebody who is in that space who can help them.
Referral.
Yeah, trying to connect them in, right? So there used to be a role at community services called navigator, and our friend Sherman said that it was the most valuable role he'd ever seen there. Twice as valuable as another role because it helped you navigate not just community services, but all the services that are available. So in that way, we will occasionally be problem solving when
So
people
we
have
need to
access
know, I need to know more about what services are out there, because I just had someone ask me about detox yesterday. Now, I'm not saying they're pre-contemplated, they're very inebriated, but I don't actually know. I would just immediately get in touch with you and, hey, I've got someone interested in wants to detox.
And
Well, I don't know.
It's not something that we're gonna all front load. It's like I'm still learning every day, like learning more, but we will be learning as we go, and we'll be distilling pieces of information to share as we figure out what's most important. If we front loaded everything, it could be a little bit overwhelming. But yeah, part of this, and that will be useful to other organizations. And that's again, us doing a little bit of bridging, you know, and us kind of leading by example, thinking about what it's like to be on the other side in this community trying to figure things out. David?
Pulling on your point, Toto, like this idea of listening, like to hear somebody reflect back what I've said, it just is so feeding for me, and that is a very powerful way of listening. And when somebody does that, it's amazing then what comes forward from it too. So it just really.
So David, what I'm hearing is you like it when people reflect. Sorry.
Maybe not like that. You're mocking me.
No, it's practicing.
So we will have a binder or something, won't we, that we can put in our backpack that'll have a list of the resources?
We're gonna start with something short, and then we're gonna see how
Build
it
on it.
evolves. Yeah. Like what are the most likely? Like just for an example, if you run into somebody who's stressing because they don't know if they can pay their rent next month. Well, that's a useful referral to Housing First, right? There are funds called rental supplements that
Right.
are available with certain criteria.
Oh, they can help a lot down there.
So figuring out what the most, we want to start with a one pager, something really simple.
Okay, yeah.
And if people are growing into the role, we're happy to make it more elaborate. But we also want to have that one pager so a new ambassador coming in has the most likely referrals that are useful and kind of let it evolve on its own.
I guess the curiosity of what's available is applicable. The curiosity to what can we do.
Mhm.
Excuse me, I'm thinking of an example. I was talking to this fellow, and said somehow it came up that his problem is that he does not have any identification. So I asked him if he had been
Common.
up to the community center, because I know there was at some point two women that were up there doing that kind of work, and he said no, he hadn't been there. But supposing, I guess in a case like that, I could call community services and see if that function is still happening.
And that will be on the sheet, because those are the same two women who do the rental supplements. And so what they do is particularly useful. And it's actually more useful now because they're not at community services. They're on Hereford Street in town. And it is a tremendous relief to many people to not have to, because people feel exposed going to get help at the community center. It's a nexus, that it's loaded.
The hell's a killer.
Yeah, and I mean,
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
yeah. And there's things that get in the way of getting people's ID, and we may create a more comprehensive kind of list of like not just resources but facts. Like, this is what you need to start getting your ID.
It's so intimidating too for people. Like, I lost my ID and I start telling them how they can go about that process, and it's just, I was like that too. Like, these things seem so overwhelming, and when you're in addiction and you're locked into a loop. Yeah, sorry, that just tweaked something for me, because I talked recently to two people that one of the biggest problems in their life is that they don't have ID. They can't interact with the government or a bank or anything.
Yeah.
And it's still a shitty process trying to get your ID replaced.
Yeah.
So
So much of my work is doing things with people that they find triggering. I mean, addiction is a way, using is a way to make us to self-regulate, right? But it's also a way to avoid how we're feeling. And so we get trapped in these patterns. We avoid and avoid and avoid, and the anxiety grows, you know? And so a big part of doing social services is helping people navigate bureaucracies. I'm doing something for myself, and I'm finding it almost impossible, and I'm good at this stuff. And so, like, I can't even imagine how somebody who's more marginalized would fare.
Yeah.
I found Tansley and Nicole could have probably used a volunteer down there as a pre-interview to let them know where they are and what they can do there. You know, but they're amazing. They have so many resources there.
Yeah, those are the two, the Housing First team.
They got me $300 extra a month.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
So I'm totally comfortable with all of this, with the guys on the beach and the park, but walking with the fast and talking to the regular people, totally uncomfortable with that.
Yep.
Like, I
Me
mean,
too.
I can hang with the guys on the beach and do all this stuff, take care of all their needs, as much as I can. What am I gonna do with the normal people that? How do I talk to normal people, quote unquote?
Yes.
Like, what am I gonna do with them? Like, how, you know what I mean? Like, I know that's the big part, to make
Sure.
the connections.
Yeah.
Like, I sit on the street with anybody I'm feeding, connecting with them, I don't care. People can see what I'm doing, totally cool. Now I'll be wearing a vest so they can see we're making connections, perfect. What am I gonna do with those guys?
Have you
I
talked to
can't
straight
help
people?
them.
Yeah.
Huh?
How do you talk to straight people? Is that what you mean?
Yeah,
Like, how will we
yeah,
get educate them?
I'm with straight people. Like, what am I gonna do with them? Like, how am I, how am I gonna make, how do I connect with them? I don't know.
Yeah.
I normally don't. Like, if I walk with my daughter in the field and they go, oh, she's so cute, blah, 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 blah. It's like, yeah, you should know. But, I don't know. I normally don't really connect with people.
One of my superpowers is dealing with straight people.
So,
I talk many languages.
I know that's what the program is about, and I'm willing, but I can see myself walking around like, what am I gonna do? How am I gonna approach them? But, I'm not trying to be funny, I'm seriously questioning my ability to do this. Like the rest, no problem.
That's a great question, and I get that question from straight people who are wondering how to talk. And I always tell them the same thing.
Hold on, like, sexual orientation is different.
We're using straight as a different. we're like
Well,
expanding the
we're
meaning,
like
right?
quote,
Culturally,
unquote,
like
regular
the.
people. Like
This is why we have
house
Barista, right?
people,
To compliment
house
each other.
house people with no issues. We all have issues.
I always say you treat the person you're uncomfortable with the same way you treat the person you're comfortable with. When
Yeah.
I went to America for the first time and ran a giant battle rap show, and all these hood dudes from Detroit showed up, I'd never been in a situation like this, and so I treated them like everybody else, and it was immediate rapport.
To be yourself.
And I think also it's good to keep in mind that when we're solid here doing this and we put out a call to the community, my guess is the majority of our volunteers will be better at talking to people who are straight, who are more, socioeconomically set up, and they will complement. But I think that the fact that there's a learning edge for you, welcome to our club. And I think there's going to be a learning edge for all of us. But one of the things that's so challenging is this idea, like, let's go take care of a certain group of people who are more marginalized, who might be drinking, who might have dogs, you might see fight because they don't have a house to, fight in. And I think the best thing we can do in the long term in service to them is start building these bridges and treating everybody the same, right? That's the thing that we want to model for the community. But to do that, we're going to have to model it and we're going to have to learn it. And hopefully we'll have a good mix of strengths. But I do think as we expand and as we have more general call-outs, we'll get a lot of people whose strength will be on the other side. And so there's the option of pairing you up and using each other's strengths. There's also the possibility that a pair of ambassadors will be more focused on one demographic because that's where they're comfortable and that's fine. And another group will be focused on another. And as long as that's even.
But what are we supposed to do with the other group? Like just talk to them? No, I literally don't know what to do with them. Just talk to them?
I'm a mental health advocate around the days.
Lori.
I find when I'm out and about anywhere, I give people a lot of eye contact and smile. And some people don't smile back, but a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And then you started out with a smile, and I smile at everybody, whether they look wealthy or they're homeless or whatever. I just smile at people. And and I think with people that are, normal, I think you don't need to engage with a lot of people unless you smile, they respond, or maybe they look lost. And you say, are you looking for something? Or, but a lot of them, you don't need to go up to them and start having a conversation. This is how I see it. But people who look alone or lost or, or distressed or, hi,
If you
then
dare
engage.
smile at my mom, it's on.
Yeah,
on.
that's right. Yeah.
My mom told me that I learned from her that let a smile be your umbrella. You're exactly right. You remind me of my mom. That's one of my better qualities.
Yeah.
Grant?
Well, I was just wondering if we're going to do anything to promote what our purpose, what the Green Fest is, in order, so for a lot of people that won't necessarily know to engage us in any way, shape, or form. They won't know what we're about, so they wouldn't know a reason to engage us.
This is important. Yeah.
Are there things that we're going to be doing to, just around Salt Spring, even for visitors, to let people know what the Green Fest is?
So we can announce ourselves. The more we announce ourselves, the less of a slow start. So if we want to just start gradually, right? So that it's not about the quantity of connections, it's about quality. You might only chat to a couple people you don't know. You might be going slow. That is one way we can approach. The other way is we can let as many people know what we're doing first, so that when they see us, they'll understand, and that may lead to a more engagement. And it's really what the group is more comfortable with.
People are
And you're
curious.
putting an article in the paper, aren't you? Like you're putting something in the paper to talk about the ambassadors
Absolutely.
before we start, and then a lot of
Well,
people read that.
The question is the timing. So if we do it after we start, we can go slower as a
Okay.
start, because less people are going to be like, hey, you're an ambassador, blah, blah, blah. So in a way, it's what is easier for us. And yes, the article will be going out, but do we want to have a slow start where we just occasionally, hey, how you,
People are curious, and there's a lot of people out there that are curious about these issues because they hear about it. I have contact with people from every demographic, so I know what everyone is thinking. And there's a lot of very straight people in the island, working class or with a certain amount of money, and they're genuinely curious and they listen. Bus drivers, working class people, they're curious. So I don't know if we have to have something I would like to have something on the back of these vests, everything you wanted to know about mental health and addiction, just to ask or something. But I don't know if we need that right away. I think there's going to be a lot of people approaching us. And if one person, at least one buddy, is gregarious and outgoing, then maybe. Or do you have an idea around this? What?
Are you gregarious and outgoing?
Well, yeah, I'm just saying as an example. I was in the to be clear about it, because I wasn't born this way or anything. It's just, it was a positive that came from getting PTSD from fry cooking.
It's gonna add, it's just practice, and most of what you're uncomfortable with, you'll discover is most of your own fears. There are people there, and at the beginning, the ones that you'll engage with are those who will be interested in the best. So there's kind of a breaking ice element, and something to talk about, and that kind of helps both.
Yeah, it was more the, what am I gonna do with these
Yeah.
people? Yeah, like the rest I know what to do.
It's kind of like America's great, it's just Americans that have a problem with it.
Yeah, that's right.
Jesus, protect me from your followers.
Victoria.
What would you say to someone if you started engaging in a conversation with them and they say, why are you doing this?
Because it
What would you
makes
say?
my heart
I
feel
don't know
good.
what I'd say.
Well, you sort of said why you're doing it to us today. Is it still related?
Yeah, I want to help people, but I don't want to say that to this person that I'm just engaged in a conversation. I want to help you because maybe I can't. Maybe that's too ambitious of me. Maybe that's not something they want.
Yeah.
Maybe you could just say, have you heard of the ambassador program? Let me tell you about it. And then I volunteered to be an ambassador because this is what I think, how I think it can be helpful.
I think post-COVID, wanting to create more connectivity when we became the least connected we've ever been, it's pretty intuitive, right? That's often why are you doing this? For me, I want to increase our connectivity. I think that's where we get our resilience, and I think more challenges are on their way. And so if we don't do this, we don't get to know each other, if we don't work together, we're going to be in real, Witch Creek. And David, more
Yeah,
likely.
and there's a reason we're pairing people up. Like, lean on your buddy. You're good at talking to these people. Like, how do you do that? What are you doing? Or whatever. What do you say when somebody asks about this program? Like, that's part of the intention of this, so that we have these connections.
Well, it certainly would be helpful to be, partnered with you, for example, because you have experience in the park and you're also known. So for me to be hooked up with,
Sure.
it's
Yeah, you're going to find, depending who you're paired up with, you're going to be connecting with segments of the community you didn't know about. And that's also a beautiful thing.
And another thing we can consider is we're creating this.
Yeah.
Maybe when we begin, we want to be a big group. Being a big group might make us feel more socially comfortable. We kind of go, hey, over here and hey, over here. But that might be the way to kind of.
Sorry, I'm just thinking, look here. Just
Look a normal person.
There's one.
Practice.
10 people walking around.
Can I talk to you?
How's she doing?
Yeah.
No, good. Let's go help her.
A group.
Whatever support that's doing it, let's do that. David, could you handle the next principle? I'm just going to go.
Yeah, and we've touched on this openness, holding back on critical judgment. That relates to curiosity. Being able to pause our judgment so as to allow and build understanding. That's a huge part of what this is about, because in our culture, colonial culture, we judge first, ask questions later, and there's a real loss in that.
Oh, you have to learn how to control your judgments.
Yeah.
Totally.
Making sure to really understand and hear where someone is coming from. Wow, is that ever powerful? This creates the safety to share, and this is in what Toto was talking about, the listening, and for the receiver of our openness to feel a sense of belonging. Really, we're creating a community where everyone feels like they belong, or that's the larger piece of this.
Connected.
Yeah, I feel like we've touched on that and discussed that just naturally. Yeah. Is it okay if I keep going? Equity. Ambassadors are for everyone. Ambassadors put effort into connecting with anyone who is in the Rage Corps, and there's a reason for that. It can be stigmatizing to focus on one particular person or a particular group, however we deem them to be. We do not want any one demographic to feel targeted or focused on by ambassadors. We endeavor to show all community members the same grace. So this could be walking into a business. Hey, I'm an ambassador. I'm just checking in. I don't know if you've heard about the ambassador program, but I'm just wondering how you are. Wow.
Yeah.
And there's some great, like, it's holding that people are valuable. If there's inherent worth, this is really the idea in here. Any comments around that? Grant.
Oh, I have a
I could read body language, go ahead.
Could we have a break in a minute after Grant talks?
Sure.
Just to get
Yeah.
coffee and stuff?
I'm wondering if there's gonna be some sort of centralized feedback place, like say for example, when we go into a business or we're talking to someone and we get feedback on how they're doing, or is there a need to somehow centralize some of that information where it might be useful to, community feedback, or like from a business owner or whatever? Like, is that part of our role, or is that just more to be a listener and the check-in type person? Should we take it a step further?
Yeah. So what our plan is, and I love the question, is to have business cards where there's a feedback loop on the back. And it will be a Google survey form, very simple, for people to provide feedback, and then it automatically compiles it. So the link will be on the back of the business card. And they obviously can't click on it, but they can type it in and provide that feedback.
Good.
And then the mechanisms, there's an email address, saltspring.ambassadors@gmail.com, that also can receive things.
Great.
So that'll all be on a business card then.
And would that, I'm assuming that would be something that we implemented in sort of a staged process. Is that near the front end, or is it near the?
It's near the, what do you mean by?
Like,
The
is it-
business card.
Yeah, is that something that we'll have as a tool right away, or is it something?
Close to right away.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in the works, we just discussed it out.
I love seeing stuff.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, great, I love it. Very simple.
And for in the other direction, I'm thinking for myself, because I forget things. I'm gonna take a little notebook or something and just write down if I go into a business and they say, you know what my issue is, blah, blah, blah. And I'm gonna write it down, the name of the business and what their issue is, and take it if we have these meetings where we debrief.
Maybe we should all
Maybe
have
bring
journal.
it to the group or bring it to somebody that is a connection so that we can actually give people feedback and we can come back to them and say, I looked into that for you.
Right. Yeah, well, this is part of the logistics that we'll need to
Yeah.
kind of work through.
Right.
The items we'll have the Chamber of Commerce items collected there, and they can be picked up. The challenge is the chamber is where it is open 11 to 2.
Right.
So it would mean as an ambassador to go
Yeah.
in there and grab them at a convenient time for what works, like whether that's a green vest or we're going to offer food too. This is part of it also, that you can hand out a granola bar or whatever, and maybe some drink. Again, whatever you feel comfortable with. But you're going to go somewhere else. But, yeah, so this is all part of the logistical working out. Anything else around equity?
All I was going to say was, you might notice we focus disproportionately on people who are marginalized in town. And I think that makes sense because they are in town a lot,
Most obvious.
right? And so other people visit town far more frequently. So yes, this is about everybody in town, but obviously ambassadors are going to be engaging more with people who are in town every day.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, the great aspiration of this program, and one of the motivations, other than Toto's beautiful, everybody's a person, and David we value, I also want to be a bridge for people who might be interested in meeting people who are in town, because that's how you feel safer. It's when you know people. And so my hope is eventually for the ambassador program to be a bridging where communities getting to know itself, and maybe people that they wouldn't otherwise meet.
Bridging.
Yes, bridging.
Yeah.
And we've already talked
Couldn't
about that.
Yeah.
How do
Overused.
how do I talk to normal people?
I know exactly what you mean by
Yeah,
that.
no.
Maybe we should rewind
No, it's an important
and
question.
cut that out.
Well, there's been other things too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like
Okay, if
your
I
English.
keep going.
Well, should we pause? I think there's a request.
Oh, right.
to pause. Did we do equity?
Yeah.
So we've kind of done support, bringing in other resources. These things kind of came up organically. But when offering someone support or dealing with a challenge or with a situation, ask yourself, is there someone I should be calling? An example of this might be someone who's wounded, and you're like, oh, I'm going to drive him to the hospital. Make sure that's something you want to do. There's liability as soon as an injured person. I can't drive people who have a physical injury that's significant enough to the hospital, because that's for ambulances, where paramedics can evaluate the wound.
And what if we do find ourselves in a first aid situation? Like, I always have my first aid kit with me, and I've administered down here. But is there going to be a problem with that? Should we just
No,
call
there's
911?
Good Samaritan laws to protect that, but it's different in transport. So if somebody
Oh.
is wounded, and it's like a real wound, you want to do first aid if you have it, but
Yeah.
also call 911.
Okay.
What about Narcan?
Pardon me?
What about?
Naloxone?
No, naloxone.
Those are protected by Good Samaritan laws, so you can always administer.
Will we carry one?
Um,
In the backpack?
Might have
it'll be my suggestion.
I think we're all.
If
Were you
you are
charged?
Yeah.
with another person.
Yeah, we're not going to make it mandatory, but we can organize trainings for people.
Yeah, that's really easy.
And
On that note though, because we're now organized, are there gonna be different things that govern what we can and can't do?
Yeah.
As opposed to say that an individual is a good Samaritan?
no.
I don't.
Good, my understanding is Good Samaritan laws apply to everybody, regardless of organization.
I don't know anything about that.
Would there be
Because
like,
we're not paid. It's not our job.
well, I don't know, but necessarily.
Well, I think we're gonna fall under the Good Samaritan law. If that changes, we do have liability insurance.
Okay.
So that is in there, and if there is any issue in terms of particulars, then yes, then we'll communicate that. But really, if somebody is injured, 911. If somebody needs mental health support, encourage them to go to the hospital. The hospital is a key hub.
Yeah.
And we won't need to be doing much in terms of that, is my thought.
There's also, I think, a new 988. I don't know if that's.
Yeah, new mental health number.
New mental health,
Really?
Like a 911
I'm
number.
sure I didn't hear what you said.
There's a new mental health number. So how they have 911 for emergencies, this is strictly for mental health emergencies, is 988. I don't know if
Things
that's
are changing. a
official,
little bit.
but.
Another important piece is consent. So if there's a more appropriate professional, does this person want to see that? So in mental health situations, right, like we don't have any peer support workers right now, but we hope to at some point. And just because the situation is well suited for a peer support worker doesn't mean that we have the person's consent, although they may feel comfortable and trust. But it's also going to be important to set boundaries about what we can and can't do. Sometimes when someone trusts us, they may want us to do all kinds of stuff. And be like, I'm really sorry, I can't. Modeling boundaries is part of how we grow mental health in the community. And that's a tension in a lot of us, because a lot of us came here because of just how much we care. And so we're constantly navigating the tension between the boundaries that are necessary and the fact that we just want to, care so much.
The best kind of helps us to establish those boundaries.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a,
Well, there's help and then there's enabling, right?
Ooh, that's a tricky subject.
yeah. I'm not going to dive into that one because I think that's a really important part, but I just think it's a meeting in and of itself. Is it okay if I move on?
Yes.
So safety for ourselves. To increase the safety of Ganges, it's important that you feel safe. Safety in relationships is about an investment of time and energy to build trust and connection. If you don't feel safe, then it's impossible to build trust and increase the sense of safety in others. And so one of the things I imagine is that our bubble of safety will be smaller when we start, right? And we will mostly stay inside that, and when we feel ready, we'll go a little bit out of our comfort zone. And through this, through time, through process, through learning together, usually your comfort zone expands and your sense of safety expands. But not wanting to put our safety aside to do a good job or because we think we're supposed to be a certain way. When I started doing outreach, the first thing I realized is that I have to do it at my own pace. And a lot of days I went really slow, and I felt guilty about it. But because I took it at my own pace when I was ready, the folks were ready, and then it worked really well. Does anything come up around sense of safety for ourselves?
I think one thing that I've wondered all along is it important, for example, if we're being scheduled in pairs to stick together as a pair for safety or for other reasons, or is it like, for example, if one person is connected with somebody in is there ability for the other person to spread out and to you know, like, is that something that's a dialogue between the two people who are working together, or in terms of how they feel?
I would lean towards it being a dialogue. Like, my experience of Ganges is that it's pretty safe. It's a pretty safe place to be. That being said, I also think it's good to just start cautiously, just start gently. And I don't want anybody to feel pressured, like, yeah, I'm okay by myself, so you can go talk to the person that you wanna serve. So I would go slowly with that. I just think that, especially the social awkwardness of talking to people, like, and this is just speaking for myself, having someone else there is like a safety net, you know? And so I think it's good to talk about it first, and I think it's good to you know, try to stay mostly together to begin with, so that we can feel our way and have opportunities to discuss.
So that would then imply, though, also if someone, for example, doesn't show up that you're supposed to be partnered with, you know, depending on who you are, some may want to continue to go out that day, and others may not feel comfortable or safe enough to do that.
Yeah.
So that's also an individual choice of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Is that okay then if that happens in an emergency, if one person feels comfortable doing it on their own?
Sure. Yeah, we do encourage the connection, that because there's a lot of pieces in there. There's support, there's accountability. There's a lot of advantages to it, but we also want to allow the flexibility, because maybe you agree with your buddy that, okay, you're going to spread out and you're going to convene again at a certain point. And why
Or
not?
someone wants to talk to you in an extended way, or
Yeah,
It's confidential,
exactly.
because they
Yeah.
trust you.
I'm just gonna head off while you're talking to so and so like that. I think that's all fair game.
It's organic.
It makes sense. It's organic, yeah.
Can-
I was just gonna say the other safety piece is if something happens that is triggering for whatever reason, we want to, and Stephen was talking about this earlier to me, we want a mechanism for debriefing. So maybe you debrief with your buddy, it may be that you want a deeper debrief, and so Willie and I are going to make ourselves available for this as well, because that's also important. And this touches too around confidentiality. Yeah, we don't want information to be spread about people, but there is a time where we need to talk about people, just for our own debrief. So there needs to be a safe mechanism for doing that. So that will be one of the resources of how to contact Willie and I too, and maybe Grant or maybe Toto or whatever. That's also a possibility, especially depending on the demographic too, or the connections we have. Because I might know a person, and so I might be the perfect person to talk about this individual, or somebody else knows them. So we just want that as a safety piece too. So we're not, if you're ever feeling like you're holding too much, then that's going to be an indicator that you need to reach out to somebody just for your own sake. Yeah.
Yep.
Also, just the element of the beverage backpack working in pairs. Often if you have hot chocolate and coffee, the only way for mocha is that if you're together.
Good metaphor.
You okay?
I would like to know if carrying the beverage backpack is mandatory or voluntary.
Voluntary.
Thank you.
We want to design this in a way that makes people want to keep coming back and wants new people to want to do it. So our desire is not to make anybody do anything that they're not comfortable with.
Yeah, in other words, this is all about consent. And if you don't feel comfortable, then we don't have your consent.
As we grow, could we get the possibility of the wagons?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Another just a value I want to highlight about being paired, I would do really critical evaluations of myself to look, because I was always alone out in the public and in a new role, to look at how what I was saying could potentially be perceived in a different way than I intended, right? And so we all have self-awareness, and we also have blind spots. And so the value of having someone else there that you're working with is if you're like, when I said that, was that like a little off? And you can have someone be like, well, you could have phrased it in a different way that might have been, or they might be like, I thought it was great.
Yeah.
But if
Feedback.
it's just
so-
good to be building our self-awareness and to recognize that occasionally we stumble when we speak, we
Yep.
say things and
how we
so that's
learn.
another value of being paired up. Because it can be sometimes a little bit it would hurt. If I was worried I'd said something, it might have hurt somebody when I was trying to help.
Yep.
And I didn't have anybody that big was, to ask or to debrief with.
That's very good.
Those can be bad moments.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, and sometimes we have all the good intentions in the world and really it wouldn't have triggered anyone else and somebody reacts. And
I made 2 mistakes over the last year that were
Two
pretty big.
mistakes.
2. Yes, I'm ridiculously perfectionist and I'm working on deconstructing it. But yeah, you simply, especially if you're kind of like me, sometimes the wrong word will just jump out or the wrong sentence. And I damaged my ability to be a resource for those people because of it. It's not the end of the world. I'm an imperfect being.
Yeah.
I didn't kill anyone. I didn't trigger anyone. It was just, I'm not perfect. Maybe there's perfect people sitting here. Totally pretty close to her.
Well, you need to recycle.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
All those-
And a lot of us need to deconstruct our perfectionism.
Is it okay if we move on to the next principle? Is everybody all right with that?
Yeah.
David, do you want to handle it or? do you want me to?
Sure. So safety, others, consideration of people's boundaries, reading people's body language, and that's an ongoing process, or asking to make sure that their consent is given is important. Not everyone will want what you are offering, even in a hello. Not everyone wants a smile. That's okay. Use your common sense. Let your instincts guide you. Read the situation or ask your buddy. Avoid being invested in the outcome. No, you must accept my smile. You must.
I am an ambassador, and you're going to talk to me.
I am wearing the green vest.
This isn't a conversation.
You can get the goodwill or the other will.
Right
Don't take anything personally. If you have issues around that, work on them. I have huge issues around that it took me years to feel like I was on top of, and I don't really care what people think of me. It's a huge place to get to, but I still get triggered, and I have to. That's not worth reacting to. That's sure.
Yeah.
But it's a long journey to get to that place. I found anyway. Maybe some people
Yep.
learn it overnight.
It is, because we're putting ourselves out there.
Yes.
We're offering to be kind to somebody, and if we get somebody hostility in return, it's hard not to feel hurt about that.
It's tricky to not
Yeah.
get triggered, yes.
Yeah.
But not impossible, even for me, who's
Right.
like one of the most reactive people I've ever met.
I think it's worth noting that occasionally, when you are standing up strong for caring, you will be met with hostility. And the old me would have said how corny this is, because I didn't have the courage to sit here with you in my heart space, And so I'm like, this is corny, dork, and that's okay too. It's a little scary, right? Because we're not wearing all our armor. To do this, we're taking some of our armor off.
Yeah.
And that's also why it's beautiful.
That's amazing
And
process.
it's
yeah.
modeling something that has the potential to catch on, and also the potential to bring in people who are already doing it. I keep meeting people in the community who are operating in similar spaces, and I'm like, how do we not know each other? This is crazy to me, like low-hanging fruit.
Easy bridges. Yeah.
Easy bridges.
I'd have to say that I've reached out for the last little while since we started doing the peer support group, and I have never been met with anything but kindness and appreciation from the people that I've talked to in the park.
Yeah.
They're one of the best groups that I've ever met in my life, and I used to be an active part of a lot of different little drinking and drug fatalities around the country. I used to be one of the Blue Bridge people back in the mid-90s. Yeah. Oh, it's just it's a group of people that hung together every day in Victoria. But even in Salzburg, there's 2 or 3 of those groups, and in cities, there's many, many groups. Oh, sorry, we're going to press for time. I can talk all day.
Yeah. So resources that will be provided, and this is a learning curve. We're going to discover all the aspects of this. The vest, food and or drinks, again, depending on comfort level of carrying things. a list of key contacts, including emergency contacts and resources, and we'll have them in Ziploc bags and electronically. We're trying to build redundancies into this. Maybe Salt Spring Maps or Welcome, I don't know, do we still have Welcome Iron on this island? We used to, I don't know. Anyway, whatever is really, yeah. And if there's other pieces that you want, like naloxone kits, and usually people who are trained have them. So bring them, whatever, you're gonna bring your own personality to this.
The person that taught me naloxone told us to wear them in obvious places so people could ask and you could tell them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally, like hanging on the outside. of the
And we
car.
already had one at propane, like an overdose, that naloxone wouldn't have helped. It was a stimulant overdose. And that was about a month ago, and then my whole idea changed around it. Someone is going to use their naloxone on Propane Beach this summer. I mean, it just odds. I mean, hopefully it doesn't happen, but yeah, I think everyone should be trained in it. It's a token, but it's still effective. It could save a life, sure. Sorry.
Yeah, and on that note, we will probably be bringing in possible trainings
Good.
or ambassadors.
Yeah.
That makes sense. It seems like a natural piece.
Learning is fun. You get to inject an orange.
Well, and the beauty is that we're connecting now. I know most of you, but like there's a deeper connection already just having sat here. So that those kind of connections are really valuable. And pieces we've built in to help the success of this. Well, pulling in people who have already been trained in various ways, and we're all going to bring different experiences into that, whether it's in nursing or whatever, connections to communities. Criminal record check, so I'm going to deliver a letter to the RCMP. We'll do them in person for now, so that is a piece. And it's not as though one can't have any kind of a record, but if there's harm to children, there's certain situations where we're going to say no, but it's going to be individual cases. So if somebody was caught for shoplifting at some point, that's a whole different category. So it's going to be very individual. Yeah. Did you want to say more about it?
You're doing it, or we have to go?
You have to go in person. Eventually, we'll set it up where it's online and it's way easier.
And it doesn't, I've had it done before, but it doesn't last forever, does it? Once you've had
No.
it done,
It's
you go back
reactive,
periodically.
Yeah. And it's
Sample
free.
second
There's no
chance.
charge to it. So once I deliver this letter, which is in my car, then they know that your name is on that list.
What we're really looking for is we would never want somebody who is predator to be using this as a way, or somebody who is hiding like a violent past. So like my suggestion is gonna always be if people have, on the streets, fine, let's talk about it first. But there's also a social justice piece to not needing a clean criminal record, because your chance of having a criminal record is largely to do with poverty, right? People who are more impoverished are more likely to get busted for the same crimes as someone like me might get away, and actually did, scot-free. So this isn't like a firm barrier, but we need to know who we're putting out there, because once the broad call goes out, we want to make sure that somebody who, doesn't get into the role who really shouldn't be.
So why don't we have vulnerable sector checks as well then?
This is a vulnerable sector check.
Oh,
It's exactly.
There you go.
okay.
Yeah.
Just redundancy.
Yeah. I didn't pay Steve to say that, by the way.
I can go.
Part of the success is the pairing and learning from with each other, because that is the idea of this, and we're going to learn from other people in the community as we go along and find comfort talking to normal people or whatever. Whatever our comfort is. Business community, whatever. We will create a volunteer agreement. It's in process. This is part of the working, so we will ask you to sign that, and you give feedback on it if there's anything in there that feels uncomfortable, because we're building it pretty new, but I think we'll be able to create a pretty good thing. It just talks about the risks. It talks about what the intention of this program is. It just yeah.
Okay.
We'll have the emergency or the quick debrief mechanism in there, especially if your people are very stirred. It's really important to debrief quicker. A lot of post-traumatic stress research has indicated to debrief within 24 hours. And it's hard to always know what it is deemed serious or not. We can often undermine that, but I work with firefighters, and sometimes the post-traumatic stress triggering can be just seeing a child's toy on the road.
Mhm.
It's not the event that
That's
one
right.
might think of, and sometimes it's the event one can think of, and there have been some on Salt Spring. So just like that is a self-care piece. If you find yourself thinking about something repeatedly
Mhm.
or more, and you have some energy around it, debrief. It's never going to do you harm.
Self-awareness and self-care piece too.
Yeah, at some point, and this depends on Mental Wellness Initiative funding, we'll do monthly ambassador debriefs, actually peer support debriefs. And again, it's this idea of learning with and from each other. That is what good community does. Yeah, so it's 5 to 11. I really appreciate how we've done this, just walking through. And we had a bunch of questions, but I don't feel the need to walk through those. Is there anything? Anything? Yeah.
Small piece, and I'll be the one to bring it up.
You are the one to bring it up.
Well, because it's kind of shitty, but because it's so opposite of what I care about. But at the same time, we were talking about the ability to give people like a remuneration, some kind of stipend, an honorarium. But I also know that the funding is not going as well as it could. But is there still going to be some sort of financial?
Not with this program, with the peer support.
Why aren't I in that one? Okay, that's fine with
That's
me.
funding dependent,
Yeah.
and that is the idea that there would be paid peer support workers in the
But
community.
also, when we're fully funded, we do honorariums for people who participate and bring their lived experience.
Yeah.
Lived
It's just a
experience.
bonus to me. It's just
Yeah, I'm just so
Yeah,
like
true.
so like you're part of the peer support working group. If the initiative
I am.
was fully funded, peer support, yeah, you're in it.
You come.
I feel ignored around that. Like, why doesn't
So-
Steve would be a good peer support?
So in the working group, if we were fully funded, we'd be meeting twice a month, and anybody who like fully participates for like a period gets who is bringing their lived experience and who an honorarium makes a real difference financially. Like that's what we've done historically is lived experience honorariums.
Yeah, and we will do that, so let me talk to you about that, because that's...
I want to stress what I said earlier is that I'm perfectly okay volunteering doing just about anything. It lifts me up and keeps me
Yeah,
sane.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the whole reason that why we brought in the lived experience expertise honorariums is recognizing that is an expertise and that is a supportive piece of the community.
And that's new too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been ignored mostly until the last 10 years.
Yeah. What else do you feel like you haven't got an answer to?
Is there an expectation that we do so many days a month? Or is that up to us?
There isn't an expectation. Our hope is that people can commit to 2 or 3 hours a week. And of course, if you're going away, no, of course, that's where the other people. But ideally, we have a few pairings a week that are going. Like the more, the merrier. But like taking care of yourself and getting clear on what you can commit to, absolutely. So if it's once every 2 weeks or it's only once a month, then we'll work with that. We'll keep filling.
Some of us want to do it every day. So that'll make up for people who have busy schedules and stuff, hopefully.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. What else?
So next steps.
So next
Criminal
step.
record check.
Yeah.
That we do and you deliver
Yeah.
a letter today.
And it's free.
Yeah. And it's
Um,
free.
Then what's after that? We wait till we hear from you?
I'll send out the volunteer agreement to be signed.
Right.
We're waiting on the vests to be made. They'll be made early June. And there will be some other logistical details to share, but those are the key pieces: criminal record check, volunteer agreement. Indicate when you can do it, because that will
Fill
help
in the
with
schedule.
the pairing. What else? Anything?
I think it's pretty close to it.
What are the shifts? How long are the shifts?
2 to 3 hours.
Okay, that's what I figured, but I didn't know.
After today, we'll stop by the RCMP. Use
Yes,
it.
please, to do that at any point, yeah.
So for schedule, sorry.
We get a copy forwarded of our criminal record check. It's the last one I did is like 2 years old now. I'd like to have, I often, not often, but I get occasionally requested to
Sure.
send a copy.
Yeah, mine's too.
Happy to, I think you can request that, but if
Okay,
not,
right.
I'm happy to share those.
Since they switched to the online format, I didn't know if you, in person, you can still request that to be sent as well to me versus just to you.
Yeah, I think when I did it recently, I could request it be sent. Okay. Happy to hear.
Yeah, we can send it.
Yeah, okay. Gloria.
Thank you. Every now and then I put my hand
I-
up, just because you've given me.
Perfect.
Scheduling. So, are we just gonna do our own thing? Like some days we'll have a half a dozen ambassadors and some days we'll have none? Or are we gonna try to fill in spots? Are we gonna try to organize the time? Does it matter if we have 6 one day and nobody the next day, kind of thing?
Well,
Oh, no, we
ideally,
wanna
they're
play that.
spread out, but it's gonna depend. I think there's an organic aspect to this.
Yes.
That's just gotta happen, and maybe
Sure.
you see, oh my gosh, there's 6 of us walking around town. Maybe I wanna pick a different date. And I think this is where you can work with your buddies.
So we just kind of work that out as a process starting out.
Yeah, and I would suggest it be during the week.
Mhm.
There will be a component that lands on Saturdays that
Mm.
Gail is gonna connect to.
Okay.
And that's a different contingent of people. It's gonna be more about visitors.
Tourists, yeah.
Yeah, they like to call them visitors, the Chamber
Yes,
of Commerce,
sorry.
so I've started using those. Yeah, does that
I've
answer
even
your
started
question?
using
Yeah.
them.
So how does it work out with a partner? Will we have the same partner, or will we pick up people as we decide?
Hey, you! You look normal.
You have someone in the group.
Yeah.
Not some cute guy.
Yeah, you want to be an ambassador with me?
I have a press gang.
I have a photo. I think that'll be part of it. It's nice if we can start to mix and match a little bit, but if once we have our initial pairing, I think there's some room to see where you wanna, if you wanna change days, but then if you wanna switch, talk to your buddy and then arrange for the switch to occur, and we can always put that out in our email.
We'll
too.
probably check in about it too. I think in the long term, the stronger we feel as one group, the easier it's going to be to bring people in the right way. You know, the more interconnected we are and solid, the better it will feel to come into this.
Yeah.
Attraction, not promotion.
Yeah, it's all
Yes.
Do we meet again before we go?
No.
No?
No.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, we'll see each other, we'll still talk.
When's the launch date?
Whenever you maybe.
Yes.
Early June.
Well, that's
mid-June.
awesome, because I thought it wasn't gonna be till September at one point.
No, we'll be starting.
Oh, maybe that was
Yeah.
another thing.
And in the future, if we are expanding, our hope is that those of us who have already like solidified can be the mentor to the next person.
Yeah.
Like again, it's starting to spread the love.
All right.
So, I just want to
And
get
if you
all
need
this.
to go, Leah,
Yeah,
just-
okay.
Yeah, I have to.
I'll see you in a bit.
You
So nice to
guys
see
are
you
gonna
again.
go out with us at the first time we do it, or are we just gonna go out there in Paris?
Nice
Like-
meeting you all.
You're,
Bye, nice to meet you.
you're gonna go out with your buddy.
Okay, and
Yeah,
how do
that being said, when I can, I'm gonna be going out for part of that time, or being, you know, I'll be a bit more of a satellite, because I have to be in my professional role, be doing my professional job, but I kind of would like to be around when I can, and I do outreach in town, so I'm gonna hopefully know when pairs are going out, and just to be around. Not necessarily to be with them for the whole 2 to 3 hours,
Okay,
but to be working and around and available.
okay, so the second part is choosing our buddies. Do we just talk to each other and go, hey, you wanna be a buddy, or?
Well, that's where the sheet comes up.
Yeah.
You can indicate.
Oh, we're gonna, on the.
But I think we'll help with that. I just think it's easier.
Yeah, I think it would be good
Yeah.
if you paired us up
Yeah.
according to what you think. Like, it would be good if each team has certain
Yeah, yeah.
attributes, so we're balanced out.
And yeah, and just, I don't know, it's just me, but figuring out for myself, I find it super awkward. It reminds me of like elementary school. Where,
Will I be picked for
your
the
team,
team?
buddy?
Yeah.